As an aspiring tournament player, going over your replays is incredibly important and will help you identify weaknesses and mistakes with a more critical eye than you normally can during the game. Lately, I've been streaming my own participation in a couple of online tournaments, and as an educational exercise, I'm going to break down my own replays here with you. These are all the mistakes that I've been making. There's a lot. We open on my first match of the run against a Zangief player. I've always actually liked playing against Zangief. I feel like there's usually a pretty clear win condition and ends up comparatively straightforward, and it really just lets me focus on my ground game. I did take the set, but let's take a look at what could have gone better. There's a lot of these instances where I'm finding these pokes, usually lariat or an accidental toward strong trying to walk forward there, where, you know, I'm committing to punishing the SPD and I just don't follow through. Yeah, I even miss a CA punish here. I need to better understand where I am on the screen and understand, you know, if I'm using the lariat as a whiff punish to get heavy elbow versus something else. Another fundamental issue is here we start to see my anti-air game leaves a lot to be desired. There's a lot of these spots where I just don't get the anti-air in places where it should have been pretty straightforward. I leave a lot of damage on the table like that, and in a lot of these clips I have bar for an EX knee after, so I could have gotten some decent Oki that I just miss out on. To my credit, I do start to try later on in the set, but you can see that I'm not comfortable. Here we see another problem that actually plagues me a lot through the set. And, oh, do I have something to say? I'm mistiming the meaties on him, and he's getting wake up throw and fucking beating my bad meaties. Oh, yeah, no, that's exactly right. Way to go, live me. Yeah, this comes up a lot. In fact, it comes up later as well. Uh-oh. Here we see another problem that it takes me way too long to get used to. Despite knowing the Geef matchup, those empty knees into SPDs, that's something that's really common for Zangiefs to use, and they'll buffer SPD behind it. And it takes me way too long to get used to it in the matchup. Yeah, I mean, you can see it even from these pretty far out ranges. I think at one point they even get away with it on block. That's a panic CA. We don't have to talk about that. Absolutely no reason. This is something kind of nitpicky, but I don't like the decision I make here. I play for a reset after a heavy punch elbow into command grab, and I don't recognize that he's hitting buttons. This actually comes up again a bit later, but I had bar, and I could have played for the corner a little bit better. Here we do recognize... Okay, now he's starting to check. Oh, I figure it out again. Wow, way to go, live me. Yeah, I do start to identify that he's playing pretty buttons heavy, and here we see that I do make the adjustment in game 3, and I make my game plan a little bit more actively around dissuading his button presses and generating some frame traps. We don't have to look at that. Closing it out in this last round, a lot of the previous observations come together. My meaty timings get better. Here we're about to see that I do get the meaty on their wake up. Yeah, and I've just adequately recognized that they're playing a bit more buttons active, right, and it wins out the set for me. So I lose my next round in the winner's side. This is the match that got me eliminated, my first match down in losers, and we already see that I have the same problem with anti-airs that I had in the Zangief matchup. Some of these spots are particularly egregious. I mean, there I'm up a game and I have a round and I've got full resources. Anything into EX knee drop could have led to a really explosive sequence for myself that I just don't ultimately get. A couple errant pokes not capitalized on. Not as egregious as the Zangief matchup because it's, you know, there's less like whiff SPD kind of stuff, but it does end up being a real problem. Here we see some matchup difficulties for me, where I'm playing at ranges where I'd like fish for lariat, and I'm just not expecting how low her crouching hurtbox is, combined with the strength of her low forward. You know, not respecting the low forward into the fireball when she has the store, standing jab checks that are just whiffing underneath the crouching hurtbox, and really exposed by standing roundhouse, particularly in V-trigger. Is just not particularly comfortable with the jury matchup, clearly, and it really shows. Here we see a problem that comes up a fair bit, where my opponent is able just to walk back away from my throw pressure a lot. You know, Jury has a great walk speed, and Alex doesn't really have a particularly great low poke. You know, he has a low forward, but it really just kind of slows people down. Here, thankfully, I do recognize that there's some walk back, and I play a little bit more aggro and get this great sequence here. Woo! God, EX SPD does so much damage. I feel like I played around stores all right. I either, you know, trade my own V-skill 2 for their store, or if I have charge, I try to punish. Hitting a jump in over that fireball there, my opponent really wasn't ready for it. This is a pretty great sequence. This is what every Alex player wants, right? Get the knockdown in the corner. Do I spend the bar for the good knockdown? Yes, I do. Oh, I went for layer 2 on a tick. They hit buttons.
Shit.
Uh-oh. We don't need to watch this. Cut the tape. The real problem that plagued me through this whole set was related to the throw game. My delay tech pattern got hardcore called out in a couple of spots by the end. Even a lot of the jumps that I wasn't anti-airing, like here, are actually just call-outs from my opponent trying to get a neutral jump punish on my delay tech. And, you know, I could be buffering anti-airs behind the regular throw, but really, as you can see here, you know, these are some hardcore call-outs that ultimately cost me the whole set. So what are my takeaways? Generically, my anti-air game leaves damage and pressure on the table. If my anti-air game improves and I get more comfortable with just placing Crouching Fierce or an anti-air knee, I get more damage, better pressure, and I reinforce a ground-focused game where I had been doing alright overall. I need to be more conscious of where I'm sticking my pokes out and better adjust whether I should be buffering off of them or just watching to see what comes of it. There were no shortage of times where any one of my lariats, if buffered into heavy elbow, could have swung the game in my favor in the subsequent situations. I need to go in the lab, particularly against Jury, and figure out more ideal counter pokes. It may just be a question of me using crouching jab more instead of standing jab. My Laura player is showing with my reliance on stand jab. I need to be more conscientious about my throw teching. The hard callouts on the way that I delay tech at the end of my loser set really exposed me and are really the meat of why I ultimately lost. So overall, anti-airs, conscientious poking and counter poking, smarter throw techs. Just like that, I have a concrete list of improvements to work on when next I play. I hope that you'll all watch with me and see if I'm able to put any of this into practice. See you at CEO!